Hello and welcome to another Coffee with Developers. Today I'm here with a colleague of a former colleague of Mozilla, Tarek Ziadé. So Tarek, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Chris. So how do you do?
I'm good. We had you on the live show last Wednesday, and we didn't get through all the topics. So we wanted to actually deep dive a bit today and talk about what you do and how you're actually seeing the whole world as ML engineers do. Like you're an officially an ML engineer, which is kind of cool because everybody can call themselves a vibe coder or AI wizard or whatever. But like going back to machine learning in terms of instead of just saying I'm doing AI, seems like you're much more focused on the nitty gritty and the cogs and the wheels behind it, right?
Right, yeah. Well, it's an interesting title, ML engineer, because you have so many people now that are ML engineer, and I wouldn't call me myself ML engineer. If we back up a little bit before all this LLM craziness we've seen in the past few years, you had a lot of you had ML engineers, people that work on like smaller version of what we have today, like RNNs, CNNs, and stuff like that. That trains some model, and those people had a real scientific background about what it is to do a real ML, and then with the this new wave of LLMs, a bunch of people that are coming from different backgrounds started to hack on it, thanks to like major libs that made it easy, like I don't know, transformers or vec to word or stuff like that. And suddenly you had this like new uh, a generation of ML engineers that didn't have any scientific background around ML, and that's my case. Like I've done some ML 20 years ago when I was at the university. I did like basic stuff, but since then I was mostly a Python developer. I did some web development. So when I came back 2 years ago in the field of ML, I didn't have this background. But interestingly, people that had that background and came from like serious scientific stuff around ML were lost as well as we were lost. They were lost the same way. Like all this was super new for them. And in my team at Firefox AI at Mozilla, you have like people that have this like old guard ML, this old background around ML, and people that come from the web, and we both provide different perspective on the topic, but I would say that we don't have like the same knowledge. So yeah, ML engineer. Well,
Well, it's interesting that the Python became the big winner there as well. I mean, because we had dedicated languages like F sharp and R, like all the things that the scientists always told me I have to learn if I want to get into ML back then when I worked at Microsoft. And they're like, yeah, we're doing everything in F sharp. And now it's like, yeah, even Excel has now Python support.
yeah,
And like Jupyter notebooks and things like that have allowed anybody to use the benefits of deep learning models to
right.
actually get information and data. And of course, the big story now is all these code generators that write code for you, or like prompt to app kind of jumping things. It feels to me like a resurgence of what you see is what you get of the beginning of the 90s with like Dreamweaver and Front Page. And people like, okay, you can build your app from a prompt. But then my question is always like, does it really need to be an app? Or
Yeah, very interesting because I've witnessed all this because I founded the Python user group in France, and some of the founders with me were early contributors of libs like scikit-learn, and they're still part of those labs in Paris where they do like ML. And I remember one of those guy, he was super happy because he bought those crazy fast GPU that had like maybe I don't know 4 gigabyte of VRAM. He was super happy about it, and he was doing like stuff that would be laughable now. But and we saw during all those years how Python became like the first class citizen for AI, because of the ecosystem of all those libs that made the scientific word, because of people like Travis Oliphant, when he pushed for all those scientific packages, and all this ecosystem made Python really a fit for doing AI as soon as the underlying things were fast enough. Like if you had like a lib that was able to use the hardware as well as other languages, Python was very appealing for researchers that didn't know how to do uh, like OOP, object-oriented programming, for example. Like, for example, my mother, she's retired now, but she was like a mathematician at the university, and then she became a scientist, like a software engineer. Like, she taught ML to people, and she didn't know anything about what's a class. She didn't care about that. She just wanted to do AI with like simple functions. And this is where a language like Python shines because it's agnostic. It doesn't force a paradigm of how you should program things. Unlike Java, for example, Java, it's not really the case anymore, but it used to be one file is one class. You don't mess around like what's protected, what's private, and things like that. Where in Python, like you can do like very clean stuff in Python, but if you want to put everything in a single function, well, you can. And this is also why I think Python became like this, like the winning standard for doing AI amongst researchers. And since those guys, like at Mozilla, we have like so many people that come from this word where they only I've never seen them in a actual shell. They're living in Jupyter notebooks. They live and breathe Python. And when I try to make them write the same thing in Firefox and JavaScript, they're like, "Oh, can't we have a Python server on the side doing my thing?" And then you call it. No, you have to write everything in JavaScript. And
Oh my
now,
God, I'm getting flashbacks to when jQuery became a thing, and people are like, why doesn't Firefox support jQuery instead of JavaScript? That would make so much more sense. Or why don't you put Sass in the browser and you instead of CSS? And you're like, well, because it's standardized and these things are not. Like, I mean, anything you put in the browser is attacked by the world within seconds. So anything that is not standardized and doesn't have lots of eyes on it, it's to me always feels like a super dangerous thing to put dynamically or put natively into a browser. I mean,
yeah.
Python is older than Java. That's not the thing. But like, I don't think that client-side Python is going to be a thing anytime soon.
Well, I mean, who knows? I mean, there are people that transpile JavaScript in Python. There are people that run Python inside the browser. And I guess the biggest question is why JavaScript was like, how did we end up with JavaScript as being the main language to develop new feature in Firefox? That's a real question because if you think about it, like providing JavaScript to people building websites, it's one thing. But then, if you look at Gecko, if you look at Firefox, like half of it is written in JavaScript because that's historically that's how it happened. But there isn't like no good technical reason to do this. If you want to add a feature within the browser, and like people usually push developers that are working within the browser to do everything in Rust these days. And I think that's where something like AI is going to shine because, to be honest, between you and me, well, between you and all the people that are going to listen to this, I don't like writing Rust. It's like I hate the grammar. I hate the like I love so much. I'm so wired to writing Python or JavaScript or even Lua. Every time I write Rust, I'm like, oh my God, that's like 50 lines just to express the same stuff. Okay, it's safe, it's beautiful, but now I don't care because I have AI. I can ask Claude to write it for me, and this is why I think in next year and the year, like maybe in a couple of years, we might see a shift in the programming languages that are going to be used out there to build like AI things, because it's not about who's writing the code. It's like that can be delegated to AI. And well, we should write more Rust and less Python now, since it's delegated to an AI more often.
Yeah, I mean the Rust is of course the whole idea, and I remember when I was at Mozilla, that's when just Rust started, and people said like we need multi-threading, we need multi-core support, we need to use the whole power of the machine, and you could never do that in JavaScript. You could do it with like Emscripten and convert it to C++ or LLM bytecode and these kind of things, but it felt always this extra step, and the Rust thing. I'm very happy that it became so successful now. And it's really good to see that Mozilla and all the derivatives of the browser that are out there, as well as Firefox browser, are using it. And I think the every time there was a new engine in Firefox out, people were just like, okay, fine, you've done it, but let's take a look until the browser market needs it. But then we had like, I mean, when I looked at all the monkeys that we had, like Spider Monkey and like the Jaeger Monkey engine, all the JavaScript engines, that Microsoft did their own engine with can't remember, but actually it was in Edge, and then we actually moved to Chromium and ditched it for V8 as well, and contributed to V8 instead. It was interesting to see when you said like the reason why JavaScript is so big is because of, I guess, political reasons, and because Brendan Eich was the founder of Mozilla as well, and he's like the inventor of JavaScript. Much like in Microsoft, every department had a different communication system, and some of those were like 20 years old because the director of that department was the person that originally wrote that system.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes these things get stuck with the person rather than with the technical solution.
Well, to be honest, I don't think Brendan was trying to push that hard on building JavaScript. Like I remember one time, and I won't say who it is, but one day some people at Mozilla, they were complaining how JavaScript sucks, in a local in some forum, and then Brendan showed up. And was like, "Well, sorry, I had 1 week to put out the best I came up with." So that was
Well,
really funny.
ironically, he just called out Microsoft for relying too much on web rendering and JavaScript for Windows. So there was a post on his blog about this, like how that's a bad idea. But let's
Yeah.
talk about bad ideas in AI and go back on topic to a degree. Now, Mozilla it took a long time, Firefox, to say like, okay, we need to be an AI browser now as well. Now, the new CEO, he announced that there's going to be an AI focus, and there's going to be lots of cool stuff of AI stuff in the browser, which of course brought a lot of like hardcore open source Microsoft hating Firefox people on the front and center, saying like, no, Firefox should not have AI in it because AI means spying on the end user. So, is it that, or what can we do to make sure to have the benefits of AI without giving up our freedom and data?
Yeah, well, on my side, my personal opinion is that we shouldn't send anything to servers to do those features. We should be able to run everything locally. Unfortunately, we haven't reached that point where any device out there can do AI. It's too much resources. Like the AI window project that is getting worked on requires like really big models that don't fit in a single device. You have to like rent GPUs on the cloud to make them run, and yeah, that's unfortunate. But my hope is that like 5 years from now, running an LLM on a device will be a commodity, and that we'll be able to have most of the things running locally. And there are signs that's going to eventually happen. For example, if you take the latest Apple iPhones, the iPhone 16 is shipping Apple Intelligence, which provides a 3 billion model with LoRa adapters, and that's able to do like a pretty decent job at summarizing documents, for example. And the feature was shipped in Firefox for iOS. Look, if you have that phone, and if you have that phone, it uses Apple Intelligence to do the summarization. But that's like 15% of the user base. And for the rest of the people, it's running a model on the cloud because we're like we could have run something locally within Firefox, but it was hard to provide something as good as Apple Intelligence that's integrated at the hardware level, at the system level, that's tweaked for that device. But I'm pretty sure that in a few years, we'll have that in every devices, including desktop. For example, Windows 11 now ships Onyx runtime in the latest versions, which means someone that wants to build an app will be able to use that runtime and use efficiently whatever hardware that's there, like the GPUs, the NPUs, and whatever chip we'll see sometimes. And but for now, we do have to run something in the on the server side. And for back to the browser, the AI window thing. Well, I think there are two groups of features you can do with AI. You can improve gradually what's a browser and keep the browser as it is. Like, hey, let's add some smart tabs. Let's add a small summarization feature here and there. Let's improve alt text when images don't have alt text. For all those, you don't really have to change the browser. I mean, you can gradually improve the browser and add those features and make them available. And if people don't want them, and it can be an opt-in, and it's not going to change fundamentally how the browser works. AI window is a completely different stuff. It's I would say it's a browser in a browser because it changes how you interact with the web. It's a new intermediate between you and in the internet. You're not opening a web page anymore. You're going through a AI layer that's going to interpret some of that story. Now, the details are vague. It's a feature that's been built right now, but yeah, it's fundamentally different. And I think one of the biggest challenge for Firefox in the next few months will be to deal with the fact that Firefox has a user base of people that are not for AI, and also users that want AI, that are AI enthusiasts. And what's going to happen if we put everyone under the same roof? Like,
Mm.
if you have those completely different, it feels like a mental disconnect, like a cognitive disconnect to me. I'm worried that adding an AI window within an existing browser might add a little bit of disconnection, and the people that don't like AI will be like, well, just leave my Firefox alone. I just want my Firefox. And well, okay, you're adding translation. Well, translation is AI. Okay, I like that translation. I can use that, no problem. But leave me alone with this AI window. I don't want that. Right?
Mm.
People that love AI will like, no, I want everything. I want to go in my window. I want the full experience, which is also legitimate. So yeah, it's so my main concern about adding this feature is that we're going to see a lot of people that are going to be very vocal in both direction, and I'm worried about what might happen to the product with that two directions, But I'm not a
Mm.
product, just a tech guy, so. And that's my personal.
People clutching their pearls, literally. Yeah, the question there is, of course, like also market share. I mean, like it's Mozilla is down to 5%. I mean, StatCounter I never really trusted as a good resource as well. And I mean, it's also like 5% of the people that care is good enough to me as well to a degree. But I mean, when people say like, okay, but there is a big movement right now to actually become independent of American big tech as well,
Right.
like especially in Europe, the European Union has a few things going for it, and like there's these digital independence days every Sunday in Germany now, where people move away from X, go to Mastodon, and these kind of things. Do you think that people like DuckDuckGo and Mozilla, although they're both American companies as well, have a chance to actually grab more people that way because of what they stand for?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I think I really like, for example, what companies like Flower AI is doing. I think it's a German company. So they provide end-to-end LLMs on the cloud with the encryption and stuff like that. And uh, I, I, I think as long as Mozilla is trying to protect privacy as much as possible, I think we'll be able to like keep this user base of people that trust that we're trying to be as privacy preserving as possible. But right now, when you use an LLM in the cloud, unfortunately, if you don't use like a specific a system like Flower AI or like some company out there that have specific system, it's still like you're still sending your data to some place that executes your stuff on a GPU, right? And it's all about trusting where it's going, who's uh, using that data, what's happening, is there any user data retention and whatnot. And it's going like at Mozilla, it's going to go through our proxies, our servers, and we're super careful about that. We don't want to keep any user data. There's going to be some term of service where we explain it and whatnot. But still, it's not ideal. In an ideal world, we should do something exactly like what I did when I worked on Firefox Sync, which is client level encryption. And whatever is sent on the server side, we cannot see. It's like encrypted. And for me, we should work hard on making this happen. So even if we have to run inference on the server side, we still do it in a way that makes it impossible, even for Mozilla, to see people's data. Because unfortunately, when you start to interact with an AI on the web, you provide PII data. Like it's like, I don't know, if you want a summary of your bank account, you're going to send this page somewhere. So
It's weird sometimes when you see the leakage happening. There's the other day I saw there was a company, lots of companies in Germany had their data and their keys and secrets leaked because of a code formatter. They had an extension that basically formatted the code, and basically that way their whole stuff got grabbed by a malware company. Basically, instead of just having stylus or whatever extension they normally use to make it prettier. Yeah,
yeah,
prettier was the name. Basically, it was a malicious version of that was free, and they used that one on a website, and that way these things came out. So sending things somewhere, it feels weird though, because when it comes to LLMs, those are huge, as you said. In essence, why you use a cloud is basically you have a higher computing machine to access data that keeps changing. The LLM model doesn't change. It's actually quite energy hungry and very hard to actually change it and reweigh it and these kind of things. So you're actually accessing something that is in a fixed state. You just need the computation power.
exactly.
So it feels unnecessary to go to the cloud for these things if you could host them locally. But then, as you said, like a new iPhone is the price of a gaming PC 5 years ago. Do you
Yes.
think there's a gatekeeping AI as a gatekeeping world that only the super rich can get the coolest stuff or
Well,
the
it's
privacy?
no, I think it's less and less true. Like because we're talking about right now on iPhones, it's iPhone 15 Plus and then 16, and I guess we have 17 now. It's going to be like if you look at the rate of iPhones, how often they go out and whatnot. Like in, I don't know, 3 4 years from now, everyone should have the same power in their pocket to run this kind of models. So a 3 4 billion model, and that model is enough to do most things with AI except a conversation like what you would do on ChatGPT or whatever, because then the context is too big. Right now, to make that feature work well, if you want to have something that doesn't hallucinate or provide crappy result, it has to be a model that's at least 200 billion parameters, and that requires right now 4 or 6 H100 GPUs, and one of those GPU right now is $35,000 on the market. So it means it means that if you want to run a serious chatbot, so this is what you need to do. But like you're seeing people out there showing how they have their own personal AI at home with, I don't know, a RTX 4090 or something like that. But they're still running on models that are maybe 70 billion. Uh, uh, and like after a few back and forth with the LLM, it starts to hallucinate and be very crappy. So it's not yet there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using Olama and run local machines on my M2 Mac. That's basically it's good enough for me for what it does. Do you think, and I hope actually that that's the case, do you think that the whole idea of big LLMs, of like the magical world in your pocket, is kind of going away for more focused LLMs, like smaller models, like specialist models rather than those? Because they could be downloaded and run locally on a desktop, right?
Yeah, and I've always pushed for that. For me, the best combination, the best case is when you specialize a model to do one task but do it well. And for example, Firefox translation, it's amazing. It's so they train models. So for like when you translate from one language to another language, it's one set of weights. So they train that to do just that, like go from French to English, for example. They train it on a I think it's 300 or 400 million parameter model, and then that model is distilled. So it's I don't know if you're aware of how that works. So you can use a large model, and then that large model can train a smaller model.
Hmm.
And by doing this, you can preserve like 95% of the accuracy and divide by 10 the size of the model. It's a student teacher system, it's called. So the way it works, you have your training loop, you train your big model, and then you ask the question to the big model. Yeah, well, translate this sentence in whatever language, and then you show the answer to the small model, and the small model learns like that. And that model is what we ship in Firefox, and it's 20 million parameters. It's like 20 megabytes, and it's able to translate sentences as well, almost as well as the larger model. So yeah, you're right that fine-tuned model like that can do excellent job, and in fact, some of them that are very focused on very specific tasks, like a reasoning model, can surpass large language model that are generalist, which makes a lot of sense. But the one feature that's impossible to fit in small models is when you require a large input. And this is what's happening when you do a chat with a bot, because you're asking something, you get an answer, and when you're going to ask your second question, you have to provide the previous discussion. And the thing keeps on growing. And if you use, like, for example, Quen 2.5, 500 million parameters, so 0.5 billion. I know this one because we worked a lot on it. After when the context starts to get too large, it starts to hallucinate. It's not able to do a good job at keeping understanding what's happening. It's going to be able to focus on the beginning of the context and then drop the rest and start to provide some crappy result. And it's just a matter of scale. It's just because the graph needs to like eat all this data you pass in the context, and there is no secret. You have to have a bigger model, and you have to have more power. There are some researchers that are trying to change a little bit how that works, but the transformers model, where you have like attention heads and a limited context window, is like we've hit that limit with the resources.
Hmm. When DeepSeek came out, the big it was such a shock because it was so much smaller than the other models. How did they do that?
I don't know. I think point all those models out there. It's it's a war. Like it's a race on the quality of the data they use to train the models. Like like if you take like for example, when I did the image to text model for PDF.js, I realized that the only way to provide something that worked well was to have the best data set possible to train the model. And all the work, most of the work to improve accuracy of existing models is there. They try to create better data sets. They actually pay people to write better data sets sometimes, and they do some synthetic data set. And it's all about the quality of the data sets to improve. Like I have a good example. I had one model where I had a metrics. It was around 60%, and I raised it to 75% just by improving the dataset I used. Same size of dataset, same duration of training, same weights, same models, but the dataset changed a lot the accuracy. I don't know if this is what DeepSeek did, but it's pretty probable it's some of that.
Well, the quality of data is an interesting one when it comes to like code generators and like especially editors that actually do the AI writing for you. Codex was the OG. That was like the first one where we had like a lot of data and source code indexed, and they learned from that. But we realize it's showing its age by now, and like there's outdated solutions. There's like functionality that has been overwritten by new features of languages. So the you posted on LinkedIn the other day about like this 5-step relationship with code generators. Do you
Yeah.
think we're past the world where we get like the best answer from Stack Overflow and probably get some more content in there that came from real production code? Like how do you have insight into what gets generated, where that came from?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I guess one thing that changed fundamentally is the quality of the models that were published in November and December, like the latest version of Opus and Sonnet for Claude, the latest version for OpenAI when you work with Codex. Those were a game changer, and probably because they also improved the data they used to train those models. And I think it's a process, never-ending process. It's going to be getting better and better. They have techniques to do reinforcement learning to make sure that things that are not looking good are getting better. So I don't think there is like a moment where you're past the thing. I think it's just going to improve more and more. And like for example, 3 years ago when I was playing with ChatGPT to try to write Rust code, everything was broken every time. Like I had no snippet of code out of ChatGPT that was compiling correctly on Rust. And one of the reason was that the code OpenAI ingested to train their stuff was based like Rust has this like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, it was very unstable, and you had a lot of code out there that was relying on API that disappeared, or you had like APIs out there that was just proposals. So some guy write a GitHub repo with a new API, do a lot of example with the API, and he's like, yeah, well, this is what we should do. And 3 months after, it's like, no, we're not doing this, and they're going to another direction. Turns out, one day I had this example in a ChatGPT discussion of that very same API, and I was curious because I was like, well, this API is interesting, but it's the first time I've seen it. And when I did the research, I found the GitHub repo, and I found the issues where the guy was proposing this new API. And the snippets I had in ChatGPT was verbatim what I saw there. So that was like,
So it indexed the proposal as a given
yeah,
rather than like, okay, that's not good.
yeah. Well, but that was like 3 years ago. And like people would call that a hallucination. I'm just calling that like statistics on how LLMs work, right? But the thing is, there is like this point where so many people use AI now, and so many projects are based on AI. I think those problems are and new ways to improve problems and getting rid of older things quicker. I think those problems are going to get away. Like in the past few months, all the Rust code I generated from Claude was working great, and it was doing exactly what I asked it to do. So
It's an interesting bit to see these things happening. Now, we talked about this a bit in the live show. We didn't have time for it there, but the whole idea of browsers now becoming your personal assistants that serve for you and do tasks for you in the background, it feels to me like a very interesting thing. But it's also, I mean, it gives the browser so much power that we normally always, as browser makers, when I worked on Mozilla or worked on Microsoft, we never wanted the browser to give these things. That's why extensions were giving extra power rather than the browser itself, where everything was sandboxed. And it's like the machine going there and buying things for you and putting your credit card details everywhere. It feels like a very weird thing to do. Like, do you think that there is a inherent danger of us abstracting away our behavior, how we interact with the web, that this will allow for a lot of automation to steal data and to get out there?
well, it's funny. When Alexa boxes came out, like I don't know, 10 years ago, I think there were this joke that when you got into a house with an Alexa, you would shout, "Alexa, buy 100 toilet papers on Amazon now, buy it," and it would buy it because the account was plugged, everything was there, and it was like the early days of those systems, and there were like no restriction about it. And then we had this like problems where we ended up learning that people had some people in Asia were listening to your conversation with Alexa to try to fix like the speech to text bugs and whatnot, and it was like a big scandal. And nowadays, I mean, you have a bunch of protection on how Alexa works. You also have like a hardware thing where you can turn off the microphone when you don't use it, etc. So I guess it's all about making sure that security and safety are part of the story when you build features that are so powerful. And back to the browser, I think it's the same problem. Like last like 2 months ago, I was in TPAC in Kobe because I'm part of the web machine learning work group, and we had a great day working on a proposal called WebMCP, which is a protocol where you can explain on a web page what like the feature the web page can do, and you express them in JavaScript, and then you give that to an agent, and it can do whatever it wants. And it's exactly what you're describing. I mean, you could have something that pays for you. You could have something that books a travel for you, etc. And people were super excited because they had like so many cool product ideas on how to leverage this. Like you would just sit there and talk to your browser and have like your full trip to Baden-Baden booked for you without having to do anything, right? And that was like maybe the 10 first minutes, and then the whole day was about security and how things could go wrong there. In the WebMCP proposal, there is a big chunk of it that's about permission. How do you let your browser do this? And this is where the thing is super hard and not ready yet. Is how do I tell my 74 years old mother that this page is about to book a plane ticket for her and book a hotel and whatnot? How do I express that in terms of UX and UI so that she understands it? Because the initial proposal they had was one permission per action. Like every time an action is dangerous, you have a permission at the browser level saying, do you allow this agent to do this on this web page? So now if you're trying to book a full trip, you're going to have 15 permissions showing up in your page. It's not possible. That's too much friction, and no one will understand that. Especially my mother. She was going to freak out, close everything, and just go in the shop with her physical card, right? So that's an unsolved problems, and I think it also goes. Uh, it's also about who you trust. Like if you buy everything on Amazon, maybe you're going to trust Amazon to do everything on your behalf. And then when you're on this domain, you would have like one question saying, do you allow this agent to work on your behalf on Amazon? That's an Amazon agent. Yes, no. And when you say yes, then you know it's doing its stuff, it's tracked, whatever. But having something where the agent, the domain, and the actions are three different actors, I will never, ever activate that in my browser, personally.
Yeah, you wouldn't, but I mean, then people get I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's great that the W3C is working on that, and all the companies that work on W3C browsers do it as well. But then there's lots of like AI first company startups that have to impress their VC people next week, and they create basically a new browser just forking Firefox or forking WebKit or forking Chromium, and then releasing the thing and never patching it. I'm really worried about the amount of like cool browsers coming out every week that I know are just an unmaintained fork of Chromium that will not get any security updates in the next 10 years. That's exactly the problem we have with Electron apps. And there we actually fixed it by going to Torin and basically making it a different issue, never an engine. But it feels like there's like this is an AI browser you should use because it does this and that for you. You're still opening your machine to malware left, right, and center. And it feels like the speed of which we have to innovate and offer these things is just
Yeah,
counteracting security and privacy continuously, doesn't it?
yeah. It's super scary. I mean, yeah, it's definitely something we have to be careful about. Prompt injections are something I don't know we'll ever solve because of the nature of it. It's going to be a like y- like you cannot control for sure the output of an LLM. It's not 100% guaranteed, and problems will happen. So now you have like a rogue actor. There will be ways for rogue actors to come up with some creative ways to bypass all the securities you have in place. I guess I mean like there are like interesting stuff about heuristics, about how to like there were some projects where they trained a specific LLM to detect a pattern of attacks, like when there are some agents and MCP going on. Like they would record everything that's happening and try to determine if there's a pattern. So there is some research around that, but right now there is no uh, industrial, like there is no standard security around that, and that's a problem that's not solved. So yeah, I mean, for me, the only way to be safe on the internet, if you have an agent like that, is to run your own agent maybe, and just run it on your like a single domain you trust, and yeah.
Oh, that's again a geek toy, then, isn't it? I mean, like, but then again, we have like things like Apple Pay and Google Pay, and before that, we had payment systems that were open on the web that you could use as well that nobody understood, and that's why as soon as it became part of the hardware, as became part of the operating system, then it became useful for everybody else out there. And I like simple things that, for example, if you have like a tap to pay on credit cards, that they're basically limited to like 50 euros, and before and after that you have to put your PIN in. You know,
Yeah,
it makes sense to have these like little frictionless interactions to allow, but not the big ones. That might be one way of doing it in a tiered approach.
yeah, you're right. And your example is interesting because it's also cultural, because it's 50 euros in Europe. But in Canada, remember, it was $250, the tap limit. So it's also a perception of security. Like, how do user perceive the how secure the system is? And even today, if you, even not talking about AI, there are so many ways for people to fraud, to steal money from you, and the banking system is a little bit broken, and instead, they don't fix everything, and instead of that, they have good insurance. And so when someone steals $1,000 on your account, you just fill out a paper and you get reimbursed. So, because their system is broken. So
Well, that opens a whole other can of worms. I mean, I love the idea when like Bitcoin came out and general like new currencies came out, digital currencies to replace the money system that we have now. But now everybody uses them to make money.
yeah.
That whole dream of like of innovating and making payments better, kind of is out of the window when it became too easy to make a lot of money with it, right?
Yeah, and it's all about people being greedy. Like the whole concept of Bitcoin for me, for me it's an insult to the humanity, because people burning energy so they can make a few dollars on the top of the energy they burned. It's just like doing the subtraction. I spent that much energy. That's the cost I had to pay, and this is the amount of money I get out of it because I'm doing speculation. This is terrible. Like they're not. There is no they don't provide anything to humanity. Like there is no benefit for the humanity. It's just being greedy. Like it's terrible. So
I mean, blockchain
yeah,
is a different story. Blockchain is a different story, but like,
but
yeah, it's
yeah, I
but
was about bitcoins. Like people
yeah.
mine bitcoins, like just like for the money.
There's so many innovations that sadly they've got a bad reputation. I think like this distributing large files with BitTorrent is still a very, very efficient and incredibly good way of doing it. But everybody just knows BitTorrent from illegal movie downloads. That basically uh, the only thing I know is like archive.org, where you have torrents of their data if it's larger files, but everybody else has kind of given up on it. And you can't even get like an open source client anymore that's not completely plastered in ads.
Yeah.
So sad. I mean, you worked on Firefox Send, you said. Like this was wasn't that shut down as well lately?
No, sync is still around.
I was thinking no Send. I was thinking
Uh,
that
yeah, I worked on sync, so the
yeah,
stuff that
okay.
uh, syncs your bookmarks and stuff like that. So that's one.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, in Edge, it was basically using the 365 framework for that. Like basically, you're connected with an Azure account, and it was much easier to do that way. But
Yeah,
then again, it's not encrypted on machine. It's just sending the data through the encrypted thing. So yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, once it's if you encrypt it on the client, then the server is as dumb as it gets. Like it's just a place where you put like chunks of data. So it could be anything. And when we first did this feature in 2009, I think it was in our own data centers, and like we've always told people that it's not a backup system uh, because we had like disk failures every day, and the guy that was in charge had a pile of disk like broken disk on his desk. Like he made fun of it. Like he had like piles around his keyboard because like back then it was like all the time it was breaking. And as this like still right now, even if all this was moved to like third-party clouds, it's still the protocol still says that if we lose your data, you're screwed. And some people still use Firefox Sync with a single device. They don't sync other devices. I mean, it's made to sync your bookmarks between your phone and your desktop, for example. They don't use it. They use it as a backup system. So they register their account, they create a Firefox account, and they sync their bookmark, and like, oh, okay, my bookmark are backed up in the cloud, and they don't understand that feature.
So what's next for you? Like, what's the next big challenge that you want to tackle that you think people can help you with? What should people demand more from companies that they don't do at the moment?
Well, that's an interesting question. I guess like when we started to build small models, like for PDFJS, for SmartTab, we added at Hugging Face, the Hugging Face website, we added a Mozilla organization with all those models and small data sets. And we started that 2 years ago, and now there are quite a lot of them, and they're super tiny. Some of them were trained maybe with 2,000 data points for the SmartUp, for example. And my idea was that Firefox working in AI, like it should be also a community in Hugging Face around models and dataset, just not Firefox the source code, but Firefox the models, Firefox the datasets. For example, I have a couple of datasets there where I have created images, like a description of images that are created without biases, because most of the datasets that exist out there for describing images are full of biases, or they're sexist, racist, and stuff like that. So we worked on trying to clean them and push those datasets there with the idea that it could be useful to some, exactly like what happened with Mozilla Common Voice for all the voice stuff. And I don't know. I feel like there are many product and features that could like benefit from this, and we could like build a community around those data sets and those models. Like the model I built for PDFJS that recognizes what's in an image that's super lightweight could be added in another app, and it could be like shared across several apps. So because this is also something important for the open source community. A model is not just this black box of weights you put somewhere to run a feature. It's those data sets and those models. And I think it's important to make sure it's part of the community and not something that's pulled out of a server and you don't know anything about. And this is why what's happening at the OSI, the open source that creates all those licensing, they're trying to have they try to determine what open source means for models, and they have this first version of open source definition for AI, and I think that's important stuff to push for.
Yeah, and I mean, this is what the dream always that we had. Like, I mean, every time we come up with something new, we come up with a marketplace for it and try to sell it. But we also come up with like open versions of it to contribute to. And I think in this case, especially in the AI world and the big race that you talked about, is the worry to me is that we're going back to actually hiding information from other people. We're ingesting the open web and doing stuff with it, but then we build like black boxes that we sell to people. And I think there is an opportunity to start a revolution in terms of like, yeah, I mean, smaller models that can be refined by the community and sent back makes a lot of sense. And a playful environment like Hugging Face or even like Kaggle competitions were a great thing in the past as well to clean up data sets. I think there's many opportunities to contribute to, even if you're not an AI developer, but if you're just somebody who wants to be a consumer of these. So yeah, well, let's go out and play with Hugging Face and play with the stuff that we have out there. Again, everything that Tarek has is on GitHub or on these places, so that's great to see. And that was Tarek Ziadé from Mozilla, and I'm Chris Hallman from WeAreDevelopers, and hopefully we can do some cool open stuff together. Thanks again, Tarek, for being part of this.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It was awesome. Thank you, Chris.